Good morning, fellow traders, and happy Friday. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for February 7th, 2025. Well, I hope everyone is having a great morning, ready for another wild day in the market. We have some big data coming our way that could be, right now it's being very heavily watched. And then we had some disappointing earnings last night from Amazon. Actually, the earnings were good, but their growth expectations, they're planning to only grow 5 to 7%, which is the lowest on record in their growth estimates. And they're planning to spend $100 billion on AI. So it's going to make it a little tough for that company to show good results next year. We'll see how that goes. Kind of keep an eye on it. Let's take a look at what happened overnight in the markets. Well, we start off in Asia, and Asian markets a little bit mixed. We had Shanghai up 1.01% or 33 points, and Hong Kong had a really nice day, up 1.16, 241 points. But after that, not so good. South Korea was lower, India was lower, the Nikkei was lower, and Australia was lower on the day. If we take a look at European markets this morning, kind of a big wait and see on the employment situation number here. It's like the whole world is kind of watching this. DAX right now is up 25 points or 0.12%, while the FTSE is down 26 points, 0.30%, and the CAC is lower by just 6 points or 0.08%. So kind of a wait and see. We got the same thing going on here in the U.S. futures. Right now, Dow futures are holding about 30 points in potential gain. S&P 500 futures are dead flat here at the moment. And the NASDAQ futures are down 7 points here, and they've been bouncing around quite a bit. So we'll want to be keeping an eye on that. A lot of interest on this report coming up at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. If we were to take a look at oil producers, we've been trying to hold this higher low in here, but yesterday was a little bit of a nasty little pullback there in oil. But oil overall this morning is trying to find some buyers in here. We've got oil futures right now up 42 cents a barrel at 71.02 a barrel. Brent crude is also higher by about 43 cents at 74.72 a barrel. Natural gas, which was making a move to the upside yesterday, showing a little bit of a push down here this morning. Right now, only down about 3.5 cents. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. This has been putting in an interesting little pattern. You can see that possibility of a head and shoulders pattern that could be forming here. Yet at the same time, we have this break of the downtrend and that possibility we hold up here with that higher low. So watch that pretty carefully here. A lot of things could happen in that chart. Natural gas could be interesting, and of course the change of the administration is what's making this so interesting, and the fact that they're planning to just really unleash natural gas and oil production here in the United States. If we take a look at precious metals here this morning, well, precious metals are making a move back to the upside, which is interesting because right now we've got the dollar just a tiny little bit higher by 9 cents here this morning, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But we've got gold right now at $15 an ounce, pushing to the upside, $2,891 a share. Let's take a look at GLD, not a share, but an ounce, pushing up, and we may be headed toward that big round number of 3,000 here in the chart, $9 higher. No, more than $9 higher, $109 higher, and we're there. So kind of keep an eye on that. Gold holding in there strong. And if we take a look at silver, silver is also hanging in there this morning, right now up at $12 per ounce at $32.75 an ounce and showing some strength. Keep a close eye on that. If we take a look at copper, well, we've got copper moving just a little bit higher this morning, a little over 5 cents higher. Platinum is up this morning, and palladium, struggling in here just a little bit, but trying to hold on to a trend and area of support in that chart. If we take a look at cryptos this morning, well, Bitcoin had a rough day yesterday, being down over 1,000 points, and this morning we're bouncing back up more than 1,000 points. Right now, $1,055 a coin here on Bitcoin, and mostly green across the board here on cryptos this morning, with Ether also up. $46 a coin, 1.73%. If we were to take a look at our bonds here this morning, well, bond prices fluctuating around a little bit, but not really moving decisively in any direction because of the big weight, I think, for these numbers. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but these numbers here on the market on employment could be really important today. 2-year bonds at 4.23%, the 10-year bonds are at 4.43%, and the 30-year bonds 4.64%. So just a little tiny bit of moving around. It has strengthened the dollar just a little bit here this morning, but no particular worries just yet. So what does all that mean for the day? Well, how about we settle in and buckle up, and let's get ready for the Friday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these index charts. Let's try to shake off a bias and look at these charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be. Yesterday, a little bit of volatility around this, and at one point in time, it looked like we were going to put in a bearish engulfing candle. But at the end of the day, they surged it back up again. We're so close to that potential up here where we could break out and catch a new record high. It would seem like it's inevitable, honestly, because they just refuse to stop buying here, trying to catch those new record highs, even though we haven't had the best of earnings out there, particularly in the tech sector. It's been really underwhelming, but they're continuing to push and pump and push really hard on this, trying to get these done. And while they're doing it, volumes have been relatively low. So we'll take a look at that in just a second. But if those bulls can continue to push, then every reason to believe we could break this out up here, particularly with some good data on that jobs front here this morning. Pop that out, and new record highs possible in the chart, and then blue sky above that. If the bears, however, were to find inspiration and we were to push back down and get back down here below yesterday's low, that might raise a little bit of worry and concern, and then we'd have that possibility of breaking this area of price support in the chart. Now keep in mind, these price support areas that I mark in the chart, they go back a ways sometimes. So breaking this down, we would probably start moving back down, and I would guess if we broke that support, we might start that heading back down toward that 50-day moving average, because we'd be putting in kind of a nasty little topping pattern in there in the diamonds. If we take a look at our SPY, well, SPY had a nice little push to the upside yesterday, and we are trying to break out of that downtrend right here in the SPY this morning, and you can see we popped up through that area of resistance. So good news is, if the bulls can continue to push, let's see if we can attack this big black candle here and see if we can beat that. And certainly believable that that's possible with the data that we've got coming today. If they can push on through there, then we will probably start working our way up here and attacking all-time highs, and then of course possible blue sky breakout in the SPY. However, if those bears were to find any inspiration, and A hanging man pattern here at a price resistance and a top is a little bit worrisome, but remember, it's how we follow through on that candle that matters. If we continue bullish, we're in great shape. If this were to slip bearish and were to break back down below this area of price support in the chart, well, start watching that carefully. We could progress down through here pretty quickly because those aren't really strong areas of price support. That's not a bad area of support right there, but watch that closely if we start pushing back. And we will want to keep in mind as we push back, we've got that 50-day moving average that could catch us down in here as well. If we take a look at our QQQ, well, our QQQ, big push yesterday, breaking through this downtrend here to the upside. Nice little bullish move. Again, all pushing. It's remarkable how tech continues to drive so much buying in here, despite the fact that their earnings have been so lackluster. But watching that carefully, if we can continue this bullish move, pushing right up into that resistance in the chart, there you go. Pretty easy to see that possibility. If we could push right on through there, well, then we've got that opportunity to attack all-time highs here again in the QQQ. I will warn you that a lot of these stocks are very overbought in the sense of their profit to earnings ratio. We are very extended, and so far the market doesn't seem to care about that at all. It's just kind of get out of my way and buy something. But stay with the trend to the upside. Just be careful not to overbuy into the sector in case we do get that big ugly whip to the downside, and I'll show you why I think that's possible here in a second. If we were to push back and those bears have anything to say, we got a nice little support area in here, and if we held right in there, there'd be no problem. But breaking back down below there kind of would raise that concern. We pop through that downtrend resistance and this resistance, and then we give it right back up, would start to raise that little bit of concern here in the market. So watch that carefully. Now, if we take a look at our moving averages, we still have that 50-day moving average down there as well. That could hold us in the market. And our IWM had a good day yesterday, pushing up, breaking through my alert area here in the chart. But as I mentioned yesterday, I want to see that cross up. That's what I call this, that push back after breaking this support, push back. Now pull back in here or consolidate, rest, and prove you can hold, even if it's just one day. Prove that you can hold this in here and then see buyers stepping on through to that upside. That would be a reason for me to maybe be picking up the Russell. And a good sign, if we're rotating out of some of these high flyer stocks into other areas, then we might actually have an opportunity for IWM to start moving to the upside. If we take a look at our VIX here this morning, well, VIX pulled back yesterday, but then bounced back up, and you can see we came right down in here into this area of price support. So I'm going to call this right now because that push back up, a good strong test of that little upside trend. We held it. Now what will be the kicker in here is whether or not the data today will help those bulls continue to push. If those bulls continue to push and we were to break this down, then no pattern in here and fear dropping back out of the market. So certainly a possibility here on that. Watch that carefully if those bulls can keep pushing. If the bears have anything to say and we react off of this kind of a hammer pattern in here yesterday and push through to the upside, that's where we'd start to see some little bit of worry maybe coming up in the market, and we'll have to be on our toes for that potential whipsaw. Now let's take a look at our T2122. Now our T2122 had a little bit of a struggle yesterday, pushing down, but by the end of the day, as we were zooming back in at the end of the day, pushing back up here, as you can see, we've got this good hook over here in the chart, but we've got the big data coming here this morning as well. And that big data, if we get a bullish move out of there, well, we've got room for those bulls to push and maybe break those all-time highs if we've got a good reading on that data. So watch carefully for that. If the bears, however, find inspiration, we want to take note that we have pushed this market up a lot, and that there is some big downside opportunity here as well. So watch carefully for that potential. We could see some pretty substantial price moves here and even whipsaws as we move through that data here this morning. Let's take a look at our T2108. The good news here on T2108 is it really didn't fall yesterday. At one point in time, we had drifted back down below 50% in T2108, but you can see that push right at the end of the day, and I mean right at the end of the day, the dark pool push. We had this come back up and hold just above that 50%. So we got a half the stocks above their 40-day moving average, half the stocks below. We're kind of straddling the fence here. Is it going to be bullish? Is it going to be bearish? Watch carefully for the result. We may find out today. If we take a look at our T2107, well, T2107 didn't fare quite as well yesterday, kind of hooking over to the downside. Percentage of stocks above the 200-day, coming in about 48% of those above that 200-day. So watch that carefully. And this is the one that was really concerning to me. As we continue to push to the upside, volumes remain low, and that market breadth is not following that move. We're not getting breadth follow through on these big bullish push to the upside. We continue to see this breadth declining, and this is not normal. Normally, by this time in earnings season, we start to see corporate buybacks really begin to pick this up and that breadth start picking back up. It is not happening yet, so we'll have to watch that pretty closely here. And this is why I think we have the potential for a big point whipsaw. And what I mean by that is as we press up and we're not getting breadth to really follow this move, all of a sudden, if we get something bad, we could trigger that ugly selling and see that whip down pretty hard. So watch carefully. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying the possibility is there. We're set up for it. So just watch that closely. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. And our economic calendar, what I've been talking about all morning, is this employment situation number. Lots of speculation on this. They are suggesting that if this were to come in hottie, and last time we were up 256,000, that's probably going to raise some concern in the market on inflation. So if this number were to come in hot, and you can see there's an estimate up here at 225,000, so watch that closely. There's also an estimate in here of 125,000. I think if we were to come in that low at 125,000, investors would probably be a little bit concerned about the overall economy. So watch that carefully. That's why this is being so heavily watched. We need a middle of the road in here to probably keep the market happy. On the high end, could be trouble. On the low end, could be trouble. So watch that carefully here. And we've got the unemployment rate. They're expecting that to remain flat at 4.1. Seeing private payrolls, they're expecting those to decline from 223 to 140. Manufacturing payrolls was a negative 13,000. They're looking for 5,000 coming in on that. I don't know why we didn't get a participation rate estimate in here, but we've got average hourly earnings are suggesting those stay flat at 3%, and on the year-over-year basis, they're suggesting they decline by 1/10, and average work week staying in there at 34.3. So watch this morning. This will be a potential market mover. A lot of eyes are watching this today. Then we're going to get Bauman in here speaking. We're going to have a consumer sentiment report. Consumer sentiment is expected to tick slightly higher to a 72.0, up from a 71.1. Keep an eye on that. We've got wholesale inventories in here. They're looking for wholesale inventories to come in at a negative 0.5. That's down from a negative 0.2. We've got Kugler. We're going to have Baker Hughes, and we're going to have a consumer credit report here to be paying attention to. Let's take a look at our earnings calendar here for today. And our earnings calendar, well, not so busy this morning. which is nice. We've been having to deal with so many earnings reports here lately, and the volatility around that has been pretty substantial. This morning, we do have market movers, but not nearly the kind of market movers that we've seen during the week. So I'm going to run through them really quick. AVTR reporting this morning. Looks like we got a little bearishness coming in on that. CBOE reporting this morning. We're going to hear from Road. We've got Flow. FTV is going to be in there. ULCC. We've got GPRE. We've got Kimco in there. Newell Brands will be reporting today. PWP. We've got Plains All American, PAA. PRLB will be in there, and TU. So keep an eye on those reports for today. All of these are in the pre-market. There are no notable reports after the bell today. Let's take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, once again, if you could do me that quick favor, please click that subscribe button on YouTube and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. You know, subscribing to the channel isn't all that it used to be, but it is very, very helpful. But what helps the most is probably the engagement with the video. The more people that click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment, that shows engagement to the video, and then it kind of allows that algorithm to show these videos to more folks. So thank you everyone that does do that and takes the time to do it. I truly appreciate it. And then even copies that link and shares it on your social media feed. Helps an awful lot. Thank you everyone for your kindness and that. I truly appreciate it. Let's take a look at some of these stocks that could be setting up. Remember, everyone, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence and be very, very careful in this market. And just remembering, with the data that we've got coming today, just take that little bit of hesitation here this morning. Let that data roll out. We'll see what happens here. And then we could have a good bullish day. Anything is possible. Anything is possible today. If we take a look, you guys remember I had mentioned Mickey D's. I had placed an alert here on Mickey D's and talked about this yesterday. It popped through looking good here on Mickey D's. May even be getting a follow through here this morning, so watch that closely, particularly if we're going to be bullish today. We've got a nice little pattern in here that is formed. You can see this little head and shoulders in here. You could also look at this area as just a cup and handle pattern here in the chart, so keep an eye on that. That might be just a cup and handle pattern, but very bullish overall. And if we take a look here at our big moving averages, we're up above our 50-day, breaking out of that downtrend in here. I keep an eye there on Mickey D's, coming back around, looking pretty decent. Good dividend payer as well, and if we have a little bit of uncertainty in the market, we'll start looking for some of these dividend payers here, so watch that closely. Take a look at VALE. VALE I mentioned yesterday as well in the morning prep. Breaking that downtrend, pushing up, anything in the metals and mining sector. If we start to see the dollar fall, I would expect to see metals, mining, things like steel, things like soybeans, corn, anything like that to move to the upside pretty substantially. VALE is a nice little pattern pushing through to the upside. There's plenty of others out there that are already pretty darn extended. I don't think I would chase that, but in that bullish run, any rest or pullback in here now would set up that next opportunity. And things like Newmont looking good, pushing in here through the upside, breaking through that 50-day and putting in the rounded bottom breakout pattern. We're pushing that 200-day moving average, which is the completion of that pattern. But watch that carefully. We're pushing through levels of resistance here in the chart and looking good. Every reason to believe that could continue moving up in that trend. So watch that closely on Newmont, showing quite a bit of strength. Take a look at this TIGR. TIGR still hanging in here. It hasn't been getting a whole lot of momentum, but the market really hasn't been getting a whole lot of momentum. So watch that carefully in here. Might be trying to push on through to the upside. Worth paying attention to. Now this manpower, this was all setting up for an upside move. This is one of the reasons, guys, I don't predict anything. I literally, this line here was a price alert. I literally set a price alert and I make the trade come through to my side of that trade. So the fact that this is falling all the way back down makes no difference to me, but I would watch that closely. I think any rally back now sets up a potential short. Now I know this is going to be an unpopular view here because everyone sees NVIDIA as a darling that could never have any problems at all. But I got to tell you right now, I think NVIDIA is a pretty decent setup for a possible short. You see all of this resistance up here, this strong rally with no pullback in it whatsoever. We're coming up into this downtrending resistance here as well. I would watch that carefully. If we get any kind of hint of a failure in here, watch that. We could move down pretty quickly. And you can see we've already failed that 50-day moving average here. We could, pushing back through this 200, we might have to just pull back and rest a little bit in here before that moves on higher. And I know that's not a popular thing to say, but that's really what the chart is looking like. If we take a look at Tesla, I had warned the other day that Tesla was setting up short, and there we have that push down here through this price support area here in the chart, pushing into this next level. Now I can't say that it's going to go on beyond that point, but this is a failure at the 50-day moving average. Any rally back up that stays underneath that 50-day, I would be watching for that next possibility of a short there on that trade. Not very happy at the moment. And if I take a look at things like Microsoft, this rally back up that we've seen here the last few days, pushing back up into this area of resistance, this looks like it's set up for a short as well. You push right up into here and look for that fade in that chart. If we do get some bearishness in here, I would not rule out some big tech pain here. So watch carefully on those charts. Now I can't say that about everything in here. Meta is just unbelievably bullish here, just raging to the upside, and no signs of that stopping. But there are plenty in here for us to be concerned on the big tech sector that we've got some pressures here to be worried about. Let's take a look at a few other places here in the market. Take a look at JCI. JCI popped huge on its earnings report, broke through resistance up here, rested back a little bit, and yesterday continued to surge up. Watch that carefully. I think any consolidation or rest here would set up an opportunity in JCI. Chewy continues to look pretty good up here. We're going to feed our pets before we feed, pretty much anything anymore, before we feed ourselves. And nice little resting pattern in here. Watch Chewy. I think there's a pretty good chance that could push on through to the upside. On the bond side of things, guys, I would continue to keep a very close eye. If you're not already in TLT, pretty close eye on this. If that dollar suddenly begins to weaken, and the reason that is a possibility is, well, we've got our first lower high here coming in on the dollar, so watch that carefully. We've broken that upside trend. That possibility does exist, and if that dollar weakens, we'll see those bond yields will start to pull back. And I would suggest that we could have a pretty good upside in bonds eventually if that comes around. So watch that carefully here in that. BND would be another I would be watching this, trying to push back up to the upside. Keep a close eye. Carvana pressing resistance here in the chart. We've been stretching, trying to break this out. If it can break out up here, then watch for that hold of support and that next opportunity to the upside, somewhere around that trending area. Every reason to believe that could happen here in the chart as well. Been seeing some kind of defensive sector type stocks. We might be getting a little rotation into a little bit more of the defensive play in here. Watch that carefully. Procter & Gamble, I think, is setting up for that opportunity. Coke is still a little bit uncertain in there, but you can see we've been squeezing up out of this bottoming pattern, trying to hold that 50-day moving average in a rounded bottom breakout. I'd watch that carefully on Coke. There may be some opportunities there. Taking a look at Altria here. Altria breaking through that downtrend, kind of holding that bullish pattern in here. I think it's worth paying attention to. Again, we're struggling in here right around that 50-day moving average, so it's not super looking trade, but watch that closely. And I see Philip Morris is also trying to get something going here. Big pop there on Philip, and a little rest or pullback in there, I think, could set up an opportunity in Philip Morris. So big pop out of that move on its earnings report. So keep an eye on that. So there's quite a few stocks for you to be paying attention to, and there's obviously a lot more. But I want to wish you all a fantastic day. And as important as anything else, I want to wish you a wonderful weekend. Hope you get a good rest. Next week, we're likely to see a lot more craziness in the market, a lot more volatility, a lot more uncertainty. So with that, be safe, be careful. As always, I wish you all the very best.